Let me tell you this. I've been delivering propane for close to 10 years now, and in all that time, I honestly thought I'd encountered every flavor of insanity imaginable. Furious customers, aggressive dogs, cracked driveways, people trying to settle bills with expired coupons and sob stories. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the morning I met Heather Collins. That woman didn't just mess up my shift. She transformed a normal delivery into an outright battlefield. It was a Thursday morning in early September, already hot enough that sweat had glued my shirt to my back before 9 a.m. I was midway through my route in Willow Creek Estates, a quiet HOA neighborhood just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. You know the type, matching mailboxes, perfectly manicured hedges, and more security cameras than a Vegas casino. Name's Ethan Brooks, by the way. I work for Carolina Fuel Services. 8 years on the job. Same truck, same route, same customers, same streets on repeat. Predictable, comfortable, safe, or at least it was. I turned onto Maplewood Drive and slowed in front of Mrs. Alvarez's house. Sweet older woman. Always left a glass of iced tea on her porch for me. And that's when I saw her, standing directly in front of my truck, arms crossed, feet planted, blocking my bumper like she was defending a medieval fortress. Blonde bob haircut, designer sunglasses, immaculate blazer in 90-degree heat, and a thick binder clutched to her chest like it held sacred scripture. I remember thinking, oh no, one of these. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't step aside, just stared, like my existence personally offended her. I rolled down my window. Ma'am, I just need to pull up about 3 more feet. She didn't budge. Instead, she leaned forward slightly and said, sharp and clipped, you are not authorized to park that vehicle here. No good morning. No hello. Straight to judgment. I blinked. I'm making a delivery. 15, maybe 20 minutes, then I'm gone. She opened her binder. I swear it made a sound when it flipped open, like fate locking into place. I am Heather Collins, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, she said, and you are currently violating Section 8, subsection D of our community bylaws. Of course she knew the exact section. Of course. I looked around. Same curb I parked at for 3 years. Same house. Same routine. Ma'am, I said, keeping my voice steady, I've been delivering here every 6 weeks for years. No one's ever had an issue. Her lips pressed tight. Previous leadership was careless. I am correcting that. Ah, a regime change. Fantastic. She jabbed a finger at the page. Commercial vehicles over 10,000 pounds are prohibited on residential streets between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. I nodded. Right. But delivery vehicles are exempt. That's standard. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Just control. Not here. Behind her, through the window, I could see Mrs. Alvarez watching, nervous and confused. Her tank was down to 12%. Family was visiting that weekend. She needed this delivery. I tried again. Look, I'm just doing my job. She needs fuel. I'll be quick. Heather tilted her head. Then you should have come earlier. Or later. I've got 30 stops today. Not my concern. That's when she pulled out her phone. You have 5 minutes to move this vehicle. After that, I'll call Premier Towing. I laughed. Actually laughed. Who calls a tow truck on a propane delivery? Turns out, she does. I watched her thumb hover over the screen, and something in me snapped. Not anger. Survival. Because I knew if she towed my truck, I'd lose half my day, hundreds of dollars, furious customers, paperwork, and a lecture from my boss. So I made a choice. A stupid one. A brave one. A desperate one. I jumped out, grabbed my hose, and started hooking up to the tank. Fast, focused, careful, because propane is not something you rush. Behind me, I heard her voice rise. Yes, this is Heather Collins, HOA president. I need a commercial vehicle removed immediately. I worked like my life depended on it. Connected, checked, locked, valve open, flow started. We were officially delivering. Legal, protected. At least I thought so. 10 minutes later, I heard a diesel engine. Tow truck. Already. The driver climbed out. Mark. Knew him from high school. He looked at me, then the hose, then Heather, and sighed. Ma'am, he's in the middle of a delivery. He wasn't when I called you, she snapped. He's trying to cheat the system. Mark rubbed his forehead. I can't tow that. Hazardous materials. She crossed her arms tighter. So he gets special treatment. No, Mark said. He gets safety treatment. For 15 minutes, I pumped propane while Heather paced, texted, took photos, made calls, muttered about violations, fines, and precedents. When I finished, disconnected, and packed up, she was already waiting. Now, she said, tow it. Mark looked miserable. I'm sorry, man. I nodded. I knew. $640 later, my truck was gone, and so was my day. My boss, Ryan, nearly lost his mind. During a delivery, he kept repeating, "That's insane. Welcome to Willow Creek." And that was only the beginning, because over the next 2 weeks, Heather turned that neighborhood into her personal courtroom. Fines, warnings, tows, threats, deliveries at dawn or after dark, people missing work, losing sleep, complaining, and getting nowhere. She wasn't enforcing rules anymore. She was prosecuting people, enforcing power. And I didn't realize it yet, but I was about to be pulled straight into something far bigger than parking spaces and curb rules. Before I go on, let me slow this down for a moment, because this is where the story stops being just another unhinged HOA president tale and starts turning into something more serious. What Heather was doing wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't just about parking. According to standard procedure, in most HOAs across the United States, commercial vehicle restrictions exist for one primary reason: appearance and long-term storage. They're designed to prevent neighborhoods from turning into parking lots full of work trucks, trailers, or vans that sit unmoved day after day. They are not meant to block essential services: mail carriers, trash collection, utility crews, fuel deliveries, emergency maintenance. Those vehicles are almost always exempt. Why? Because without them, a neighborhood literally cannot function. No heat, no water, no trash pickup, no repairs. Everything grinds to a halt. Legally speaking, HOAs can regulate private roads, yes, but they also carry responsibility not to interfere with habitability or public safety. When rules prevent residents from accessing utilities, you're playing with fire, sometimes very literally. And when something goes wrong, courts almost always side with homeowners and service providers, not the HOA, which meant Heather was skating on very thin ice. She just didn't know it yet. Now, let's talk psychology, because this is where it really gets interesting. This is a classic psychological trap. When someone suddenly gains authority, especially someone who's never really had it before, they sometimes overcorrect. They cling to rules, memorize bylaws, enforce everything to the letter, not because they love order, but because they love control. It makes them feel important, respected, untouchable. Heather had only become HOA president 2 months earlier. She was insecure. She wanted to prove she was different from the previous board, stronger, tougher, more professional. So she picked the easiest targets: service workers, people who didn't live there, people who couldn't vote her out, people like me. And here's the dangerous part. When people like that get challenged, they don't self-reflect. They double down. They escalate. Every pushback becomes personal. At that point, it's no longer about rules. It's about winning. The lesson here is that HOAs aren't just about lawns and fences. They're tiny political systems with money, authority, and ego involved. And when the wrong personality takes control, a parking rule can snowball into a full-blown community crisis. Which is exactly what was coming, because Heather wasn't finished with me. Not even close. After that first tow, after losing half a day's pay, getting chewed out by my boss, and spending 2 weeks waking up before sunrise just to serve Willow Creek residents like some kind of propane vampire, I assumed Heather would eventually get bored. She'd move on, find another hill to die on. That's usually how these things end, right? Yeah. No. She escalated. By October, delivering in Willow Creek felt like a military operation. We had spreadsheets, timers, backup routes, group texts. Don't enter before 7:58. Wait at the gate. She's outside. Abort. I'm not exaggerating. We were coordinating like spies, all because one woman had decided parking rules were her personal religion. Then came the call from Jake. Jake was my co-worker, 24 years old. Still thought everything was funny. Until that morning. Ethan, man, I'm screwed. I asked what happened. I'm at Station 14. They say I froze the fire station. Station 14 sat directly behind Willow Creek, not inside the HOA. Different property, different jurisdiction. But the only access road ran through the neighborhood. And apparently, Heather decided that counted. When I got there, Fire Chief Dan Morris was standing in the lot, arms crossed, jaw tight, staring at the empty spot where Jake's truck had been. That woman called a tow truck on a fuel delivery to a fire station, he said flatly. I didn't know whether to laugh or panic. Probably both, I said. Dan explained it. Jake pulled in at 9 a.m., started unloading. 10 minutes later, tow truck. Heather claimed he violated through traffic commercial restrictions, meaning she had now crossed a line into blocking emergency infrastructure over parking enforcement. Fire chiefs don't play politics. They play safety. If our generators fail, Dan said, people die. No drama, no exaggeration, just facts. He called the city. The fire marshal got involved. The city attorney got involved. And suddenly Heather's precious rule book didn't look quite so powerful. The next HOA meeting was chaos. Standing room only. People angry. People whispering. Phones recording. Heather sat in the middle like a queen on trial. Still confident. Still smiling. Still convinced she was right. Dan spoke first. Your restrictions are interfering with emergency services. Heather replied without blinking. Our roads are private. The fire marshal leaned forward. Public safety overrides private governance. That's when I saw it. The crack. Just for a second. Fear. After 2 hours of arguing, the board voted 4-1 to exempt emergency vehicles and fuel deliveries to the station. Heather was the lone no. Of course she was. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. 2 days later, Ray called me. The station failed inspection. Backup generator was outdated. Full replacement needed by Friday. It was Wednesday. No exemption finalized yet. Meaning if I went in, I could get towed again. Ray hesitated. Ethan, I don't want to lose another truck. If their generator fails, I said, we lose lives. Silence. Then, do what you think is right. Thursday morning, 7:20 a.m., I drove in before restrictions kicked in. Solid plan. We worked fast. Removed the old tank. Installed the new one. Connected the lines. Checked pressure. By 8:10, we were halfway done. Then I heard tires. White SUV. Heather. She stepped out like she was walking onto a battlefield. Phone already in hand. Mr. Brooks, you are in violation. I'm on station property. You drove through Willow Creek. She started dialing. Chief Morris stepped in front of her. You need to leave. I'm enforcing rules. You're trespassing. She didn't move. Tow truck. 15 minutes out. My hand was shaking, not fear, adrenaline. 30 minutes of work left. No shortcuts allowed. One mistake, and we had a bomb. The chief called the police. Officer Ramirez arrived, listened, looked, thought. Then he asked me how long I needed. 20 minutes. He nodded. Finish. When the tow truck arrived, it stopped outside the gate. I spotted the cruiser and didn't even bother arguing. Smart move on his part. At exactly 9:14 a.m., the system finished testing. Certified operational, backup power fully restored. I packed up and rolled out with a police escort. Heather stayed in her SUV, furious, beaten, stripped of leverage. But by then, the neighborhood had seen it all. The fire station incident, the chaos, the sheer absurdity. And they were finished pretending it was okay. Frank, one of the residents, took the lead. He organized a petition. 68 signatures. A special meeting. A formal vote. 3 weeks later, the community center was overflowing. 2 presentations. Heather went first. Property values, slippery slopes, fear-based warnings. Frank followed, Missed work, disrupted lives, common sense reality. Ballots were counted. 147 to 91. The amendment passed. Delivery vehicles allowed. Normal hours restored. End of story. Or so we thought. Because about a month later, a woman named Patricia pulled me aside. Finance committee member. Whispered that money was missing. How much? $60,000. Fake vendors. Fake invoices. Personal accounts. All leading back to Heather. Emergency meeting. Audit. Police report. Arrest. Charges. Trial. Conviction. Years. Turns out, while she was obsessing over parking, she was stealing from her neighbors. And just like that, the woman who tried to control everything lost absolutely everything. After Heather's arrest, after the court dates, the headlines, the hushed conversations at mailboxes and pool decks, Willow Creek went quiet. Not the uncomfortable kind, the peaceful kind. The kind that settles in after a storm finally passes. Deliveries return to normal. No more dawn missions. No more night runs. No more spreadsheets labeled Operation Avoid Heather. I'd roll in at 10 in the morning, do my job, wave to Mrs. Alvarez, grab my iced tea, and leave the way it always should have been. Simple, human, normal. A few months later, Tom Reeves, one of the Commerce Committee members, became HOA president. First thing he did was post the financial records online. Open access, full transparency. Second thing, he rewrote enforcement guidelines. No towing during active service in bold, underlined, highlighted 3 times. That's when it really hit me how close this community had come to tearing itself apart over one person's obsession with control. Because here's the truth most people don't like to admit. HOAs aren't evil. They're tools, like fire, like knives, like power. In the right hands, they help. In the wrong hands, they hurt everyone. The lesson isn't HOAs are bad. It's that systems without accountability attract the wrong personalities. People who don't want to serve, they want to rule. They don't ask, is this helping? They ask, am I in charge? And once that mindset takes over, empathy disappears. Context disappears. Common sense disappears. Psychologically, Heather fit the pattern perfectly. Over-identification with her role, a fragile ego, fear of losing authority. Every challenge felt like an attack. Every compromise felt like weakness. She wasn't protecting property values. She was protecting her self-image. And legally, what saved Willow Creek wasn't one dramatic speech. It wasn't me. It wasn't even the fire chief. It was process, petitions, votes, documentation, paper trails, transparency, boring stuff, unsexy stuff. But that's how communities survive. Another lesson. Service workers are invisible until something breaks. Nobody thinks about propane, water, or electricity until it's gone, until it's cold, until it's dark, until it's dangerous. Then suddenly we matter. I'm not saying that to sound heroic. I'm just a guy with a truck. I didn't set out to fight a system. I just refused to abandon people who depended on me. Sometimes that's enough. Looking back, I could have quit. We talked about it. Ray even offered, we'll drop Willow Creek. No more stress. No more losses. But that would have meant leaving seniors, families, and first responders scrambling. It would have meant letting bad rules win by default. And I couldn't live with that. Today, when I drive through Willow Creek, it looks boring in the best way. Kids on bikes, dogs barking, Amazon vans double parked, nobody panicking, nobody calling tow trucks. Just life. Heather's old house? Someone else lives there now. Young couple, 2 kids, chalk drawings on the driveway, flowers in the yard. The place feels lighter, like it finally exhaled. People still ask me, was it worth it? The stress, the fees, the meetings, the drama? And honestly, yeah, because it proves something important. You don't need power to create change. You need persistence. You need allies. You need facts. And you need the willingness to stay when walking away would be easier. So if you live in an HOA, pay attention. Go to meetings. Read the emails. Ask questions. Apathy is how control grows. Silence is how bad leadership survives. And if you're a service worker, Know your rights. Know the rules. Document everything. Don't let someone's title intimidate you. Respect is mutual, not automatic. I'll leave you with this. Have you ever dealt with an HOA like this? A power-hungry board member? A ridiculous fine? A rule that made no sense? Drop your story in the comments. I read them. Seriously, because stories like these aren't just entertainment. They're warnings. They're lessons. They're proof that ordinary people can push back. And sometimes all it takes to change a system is one stubborn guy with a propane truck who refuses to move. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there, and be kind to the people just trying to do their jobs.